Some people are smarter, more alert, or bolder than others. For many years, experts have attributed these differences to an individual combination of living conditions, psychological characteristics and genetic predisposition. But there are other factors that determine the individual characteristics of a person, including those that depend on the psychological attitude of a person, an attitude towards the given or towards growth. Those who consider their level of intelligence and personality generally unchanged have a fixed mindset. Such people in any situation feel the need for self-affirmation. The fixed mindset is often instilled in childhood, influenced by teachers or parents. In turn, people with a growth mindset believe they can develop or change certain qualities over time. They believe that the future opens up opportunities for them to develop, even in the most difficult times. To demonstrate the difference between the growth mindset and the fixed mindset, an experiment was conducted in which participants were asked what they would do if they first got a C in an exam and then found a parking ticket on the windshield of a car. Respondents with the fixed mindset would feel like the whole world was up against them if the adverse events escalated, while respondents with a growth mindset said they would pay more attention to their studies and choose their parking space more carefully. Impact of attitudes. Attitudes affect our lives. Those with the fixed mindset tend to take every mistake they make to heart. They consider any nuisance, from being fired from work to leaving a loved one, as a sign that the world rejects them. Trying to hide their weaknesses from others, they firmly believe that their relationships with other people and character traits, both their own and their partner, always remain the same. In contrast, people with a growth mindset believe they can change their personality and develop abilities. They love to learn and feel frustrated if they fail to reach their potential. The growth mindset helps you overcome stress. Among other things, attitudes determine leadership qualities as well as academic success. Thus, medical students with a fixed mindset lost interest in an important subject for their specialty. As soon as they received a C, getting used to getting results quickly, they ceased to be interested in things for which they did not receive immediate rewards. At the same time, students with a growth mindset made more and more progress as the learning material became more complex. Attitudes are important for the development of natural endowments. One educational researcher found that many established talents, from swimmers to musicians, only developed their ability after hard study and experimentation. For example, it took 10 years before Mozart was able to write something really noteworthy. Inventors and artists retain the ability to learn throughout their lives, even as they become mature adults. They do not rely solely on nature-given abilities. Attitudes also affect how people behave during depression. Students with a growth mindset try to overcome depression and never give up their studies or their hobbies. But students with a fixed mindset, falling into depression, become less active and have little interest in what is happening around them. Those with the fixed mindset react differently to praise than those with the growth mindset. Children who are constantly praised for their quick wits often end up with a fixed mindset and avoid new, challenging tasks. Tests have shown that they only want to enjoy success, do not want to take risks and reveal their weaknesses. Students who were told they had clear abilities were reluctant to solve more complex problems. They complained that the extra workload was preventing them from enjoying their studies. At the same time, students who were praised for their efforts said they loved difficult assignments. In the course of the experiments, it turned out that if you praise a child for his abilities, this entails a decrease in his intelligence quotient, IQ, and if you praise him for trying and working hard, then his IQ rises. Labeling, both negative, related to gender or racial stereotypes, and positive, gifted, genius, can be harmful. Labels tend to impede potential. There are various mechanisms by which any label leads to low self-esteem, and a negative label becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If a teacher insists that women are incapable of math and science, girls' performance in these subjects may indeed deteriorate. When the researchers asked male adolescents to say how true negative stereotypes about girls were, the very discussion of these stereotypes contributed to the boys' self-esteem boost. How do I change the settings? The result of attitudes is the formation of a certain worldview. However, attitudes can be changed by learning new skills. A person is able to learn to think differently and react to external events and difficulties in a different way. For example, when athletes with a growth mindset overcome themselves over and over again, they develop positive character traits. According to psychologists, such athletes are not focused solely on winning in their thoughts. They are focused on the process, getting as much pleasure from overcoming difficulties as from the final success. They learn from failure and know that hard work brings results. Athletes with a fixed mindset, on the other hand, strive to win at any cost, wanting to show that they are stronger than their opponents, and when they lose, they become depressed. Talent and learning. Modern business literally prays for talents. This inevitably generates certain attitudes. Enron has actively recruited talented employees with college degrees. A special internal culture was formed in it, in which employees simply could not afford to make a mistake. By doing so, they would damage their reputation and the image of the corporation. Enron was never willing to admit its mistakes and was sensitive to its image, so when investors wanted more detailed information about the state of the company, the fixed mindset forced its management to get defensive and lie. Research shows that companies led by people with a growth mindset prefer to hire employees who, instead of listing their degrees, are able to identify bottlenecks and find solutions to problems. Such leaders believe in a person's ability to grow and cope with adversity. In one study, specialists conducted a comparative analysis of companies, taking the dynamics of the value of their shares as a starting point. Comparing companies that have shown impressive growth with those whose stock prices have not changed or declined, they found that success depends on having a leader who can constantly observe how things are going in the company and solve problems that arise. Other researchers conducted an experiment with students in business disciplines that allowed them to draw important conclusions. It turns out that the very formulation of the task and the criteria for assessing its implementation contribute to the formation of a particular attitude. Two groups of students were challenged to manage a hypothetical furniture company. One group was told that the assignment would be used to assess their natural managerial ability, thus stimulating the fixed mindset in the subjects. Others were told that the assignment would give them the opportunity to develop managerial skills. This is how these students formed a growth mindset. At first, no group was up to the task. But over time, the members of the growth mindset learned from their own mistakes and, motivating each other, overtook the first group. Explaining to students the importance of correct attitude can significantly increase their self-esteem. The main thing here is to show that the mentor is interested in the student's development and progress. But at the same time, teachers must be careful in the wording. As already mentioned, hasty praise often works against the student. He may have the wrong idea about the effectiveness of his teaching method, about the level of his abilities and how soon meaningful results can be achieved. Praise students for their efforts and achievements to encourage them to pursue more challenging tasks. With children, you need to be especially careful in value judgments. From the casually thrown, "You grasp everything quickly, because you are so smart," children may conclude that it is bad to learn something new slowly. It is also unwise to protect children from mistakes by all means. In life, a person often has to be by no means in the role of a winner. Parents who see it as their goal to help their child always be the best do not give him or her attitudes to help him adequately cope with failure. As a result, in such cases, he tends to blame others, belittle the importance of the case that he fails, or, fearing defeat, make it a self-fulfilling prophecy. Attitudes and leadership. A leader with a fixed mindset can lead a company to ruin. One researcher found that focusing executives solely on their reputation can cost their companies their lives. For example, Lee Iacocca, who managed to revive the Chrysler Corporation, eventually began to think only about his own image. And while he was enthusiastically engaged in self-glorification, the company fell into decay again. The same researcher found that leaders who consider themselves to be geniuses or prophets fail to create a great team. Albert Dunlap, who considered himself an outstanding anti-crisis manager, was invited to join Sunbeam. Wanting to be a hero in the eyes of shareholders, he closed 2/3 of factories and laid off half of his employees. However, the company's value rose so high that he was unable to sell it. Forced to take over the management of the company, he fired dissenters and artificially inflated profitability figures. 2 years later he was thrown out of the door. Growth mindset leaders are the opposite. As CEO of General Electric, Jack Welch immediately admitted that he was not a genius and expressed a willingness to learn. He began to stimulate the contribution of employees to the development of the company and to destroy internal bureaucratic barriers. He often met with workers to get their opinion. And one day he went to the elite club of the company's top managers and raised the issue of his activities and plans. Soon after, the president of the club announced that the club was being transformed into a volunteer squad and was opening up membership to everyone. After 20 years, it already had 42,000 employees who patronized schools, libraries and playgrounds. Welch fired 4 executives who followed financial plans but did not follow the company's corporate values. But he was not immune to failure. Welch made a mistake that cost General Electric hundreds of millions of dollars in acquiring investment bank Kidder, Peabody & Co., which employs dishonest traders. But the story helped him understand how thin the line separates overconfidence from failure. In all, over the 20 years of Welch's work, the value of GE has risen from $14 billion to $490 billion. Good leaders are eager to learn. Numerous studies prove that natural leaders don't exist. They become leaders by changing themselves. Rather than trying to find future leaders based on natural talent, companies should evaluate candidates for leadership positions based on their ability to grow and be sure to give them tasks to learn new things. By providing opportunities for employees to learn, the firm not only helps them grow and increase their income, but also helps them learn to cope with difficulties. In love and in war and in personal relationships, people with different attitudes behave differently. Those with a fixed mindset prefer spontaneous startups and dramatic breakups. They find it difficult to forgive, as the partner may find it weak. When something goes wrong in a relationship, they tend to blame their chosen ones for it, denying their own guilt. Some are able to get so carried away by competing with a partner that they belittle both his achievements and his personal dignity. Depending on how you perceive external events and how you react to them, your perception of the world can become a source of joy for you, or constant experiences. People with a fixed mindset tend to be critical. Using cognitive therapy, psychologists encourage such people to ask themselves why they are harshly judging others and whether such judgments are justified. This is one way to break the fixed mindset and discover growth opportunities. About the author Carol Dweck is a member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences and one of the leading researchers in the field of personality psychology. She is a professor of psychology at Stanford University and previously taught at Columbia University. Her work, I Theory, was named Book of the Year by the World Society for Progressive Education.